So, good day, and it's a happy occasion to be here with you all and have the opportunity to meditate together, and for me to teach. It's a privilege, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. And we have this wonderful mind, citta, C-I-T-T-A, that begins to stand out and highlight the calmer the mind becomes. So when the mind is agitated, it means it's caught up in its concerns, its preoccupations, its agitation, and often then it's the more agitated the mind is, the more it's swirling around in its thoughts, ideas, feelings. And it's the subset, it's a particular aspects of the mind that the mind is focusing on. Thinking, for example, or emotions, ideas, memories. And what we're doing as we switch to being mindful of the mind is to no longer have the preferential attention to particular corners of the mind, particular activities of the mind. And so as the activities of the mind get quieter and calmer, what's available then in highlight, and over time, as meditation deepens, it becomes stronger and stronger, is becomes a felt sense of the mind as a whole. And exactly what that is not so important. What's important is your own way of experiencing it. Some people might prefer to use the word awareness to represent the mind as a whole, the total gestalt of how things are operating. The sum, the total is greater than the sum of the parts. So there's something marvelous that happens as we open up more widely and fully to the mind. And in this early tradition, there's sometimes his mind stands out so much in highlight that it's anthropomorphized, sometimes seen as a person, as if a person can talk to their mind or work with the mind, train the mind. It's never seen as the self, and this movement of selfing, of positing, feeling, sensing a self, in this early tradition is seen as just another form of mental activity that can also be calmed down, put to rest. And as it does so, that also frees up the space for feeling the mind as a whole, or sometimes it's called the state of the mind, or the mood, inner mood, the general mood in our mentality, or the heart-mind. And it begins to shift the orientation of how we live our life. And rather than focusing on the particular concerns we have, it gives us the opportunity to care for, and I love this word care, compassionately care for, lovingly care for, the quality of the mind, or the quality of the heart, the quality of this inner life that we have, that's what's the gestalt, the totality of it, that here in the tradition is called citta, mind. And we can begin settling the mind, opening the mind, pleasing the mind, bringing joy, happiness to the mind, and liberating the mind. And it's such a phenomenally satisfying thing to switch from the details and concerns of our life to the present moment experience of mind and caring for that. So with that as an introduction, we'll assume a meditation posture and gently close your eyes. And with the eyes closed and feeling your body from the inside out, taking a few long, slow, deep breaths. Deep, deep breaths, really as if you haven't breathed for a while, and finally you get to really fill yourself with oxygen. And then exhale, a delightful long exhale. Ah, here you are. Here you are. Breathing in and breathing out. And then letting your breathing return to normal for a few minutes, few moments, and just sit here and feel your body. Maybe those deep breaths have had an influence, effect on your body. Maybe your body is a little bit more, has more sensations to feel. Maybe you want to adjust your posture a little bit more. And then we'll do a little breathing exercise that maybe will help deeper relaxation. Maybe a relaxation deep inside, the heart, the mind, the citta. So it involves taking a deeper breath, but only about 3/4 full, but only as far as is comfortable. And then when you get to the top of that particular in-breath, hold the in-breath a little bit. Don't exhale right away. And hold it for as long as it's comfortable. And then as you release it, as you begin the exhale, see if that occasion can be one of a deep relaxation, letting go. It's almost like the holding of the breath heightens the awareness of your body, your insides, that there's more available to relax as you exhale. So taking a 3/4 comfortable, deep in-breath, holding it as long as is comfortable, and then exhaling with a deep relaxation. And it might be that the exhales can be a little longer than usual. Maybe as you exhale, you also relax the mind itself, softening, opening, expanding the mind. And even if you can't relax the mind, as you exhale, feel whatever softness there's in the mind. Feel whatever transparent boundaries there is to the mind. And if it's comfortable, continue a little bit longer. And now at the end of the exhale, pause a bit, just as long as it's comfortable, before you inhale. So there's a rhythm of inhaling, pausing, exhaling, pausing, that brings a heightened awareness to your body and mind, and a greater ability to relax. settle in. And then let your breathing now return to normal. No special effort to pause or hold. And take a few moments to feel and sense your body again. And if there's some more areas of your body you can easily relax. So softening around the face. Releasing the shoulders. Softening the belly. And if the relaxing you've done, settling in you've done, brings any sensations of pleasure, or well-being, breathe with a pleasure. Breathe with a sense of well-being. The tingling, the warmth, the glow, the dancing energy. And allow the thinking mind to become quieter. Letting go of thoughts so you can have more energy, more attention to feel the body breathing. Breathing with the well-being that might be here, however small it might be. And you might become aware of how the mind, attention is predisposed to focus on particular things, concerns, preoccupations. And if so, then you're experiencing a limited aspect of your whole wondrous mind. Without necessarily letting go of your concerns, can you expand your awareness to include more of your interior life, more of your quality of inner life, your mind, your heart, the state of your mind, state of your inner being. Something that is inclusive, because everything that happens within the mind. And then breathe with the mind. Breathe through it. Almost as if each inhale fills the mind with the sensations of inhale. Each exhale relaxes and expands the mind, settles it. Becoming aware of the global mind, the global sense of a state of mind, mood of the mind, the quality of the mind overall. Maybe it can include the space of the mind, the space that the mind fills. So you're not focusing on any particular part of the mind. A state which has no boundaries. And if it has a location, this mind of yours, chances are that there's a little feeling of contraction or gathering together that gives that feeling. As you exhale, relax that gathering together. Soften. Let the mind rest out into the vast space all around. Mind with no walls, no boundaries. Mind that involves no conscious effort. That is just there, here. If there is suffering, suffering has a location. The mind includes all that is beyond the edges of that suffering. That's wider, bigger. And to relax outward beyond the suffering. So that whatever suffering there is is held in this wide field of open mind, open awareness that has no edges. Breathing in, outward breathing that goes outwards towards the edges, beyond the edges. All inclusive. Wide, broad, open. Resting into the open space. And as we come to the end of this sitting, with whatever way that you can rest in open space, without the mind getting quickly fixated or preoccupied on any particular thing, just open and receptive, allowing things just to flow through you. Nothing stops. Nothing is held on to. And staying that way the best you can. Bring to mind some person that you might encounter today, personally or through some medium of communication, phone or computer. And imagine that you are quietly allowing that person to exist as they are without you fixating on anything, as if they too can be held in the vast open mind. In that way, providing them with a gift that they can be just the way they are, without any interference from you with your desires, aversions, agendas, reactions. Allowing someone to be themselves in the vast open space of your mind. And in doing so, or imagining that you're doing so, does that give you a different reference point for goodwill, for love, friendliness, care, even respect for this other person? And if it does, now maybe wish them well. May this person be happy. May this person be safe. May this person be peaceful, at ease. May this person be free, certainly free of my attachments. And may it be that other people that you encounter and other people that you have some contact with or think about today, that they also benefit from this meditation practice you've done today. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at ease. May all beings be free. And may we contribute to that. So, so the topic, much of this week is step 9 of mindfulness of breathing. And this is the step where we're experiencing the mind. And I hope that the way I'm presenting the mind is something that's I'm not trying to define it in ways that you have to fit yourself into the definition, but rather that it's pointing to how you experience the mind, the mental state, mind state, heart state. That there's a lot of room here for you to find your own way to this. And but one of the ways to appreciate it is that we're moving into the sum total of how we experience the mind. Vipassana practice often has a big emphasis on the particularity, really seeing the particularity of the in-breath, the out-breath, of sensations as they occur, the particular activities of the mind as they come and they go. But there's also some way that part of the particular is also the harmonious working of all this together, or the kind of the awareness or the knowing that knows it all. And exactly whether mind and awareness are the same, knowing is the same or not, it's very hard to kind of pin down these things, to know exactly what the mind is, or consciousness, or all these kinds of things that belong to this rather, I don't know if amorphous is the right word, but difficult to define qualities or experiences of our interiority, of our inner life. And you'll see now in a moment maybe why it's difficult to kind of put words on it and define it exactly, is that the concepts that we live with, the ideas that we have about our experience, actually shapes our experience. We are not innocent bystanders of our experience, that whatever happens to us, whatever experience we're having, that it's only happening to us. We're also contributing to some degree to that experience. That certainly there are clear things that happen to us, so to choose something relatively innocent perhaps, if I go out, I'll give you the example I've taught many times, and I was thinking about it today when I was biking down here. It was cold biking down here this morning. Is kind of a revelation for me many years ago. Was living in Central California, going to college at a college called Davis, and it was they had this fog, early morning fog, tule fog, And in the wintertime, the cold fog was really cold. And I didn't have any gloves, and I would bike to school, and the first 5-10 minutes of being in class, I couldn't actually use my pen because my hand was still frozen, and so it was so cold. So I used to, for a while I was biking to school this way and kind of feeling miserable, sorry for myself. And it was so terrible, this cold that I felt. And then at one point I kind of had a memory that exactly the same feeling of cold that I was having biking to school was, as far as best of my memory, exactly the same feeling of cold I had in my fingers as a kid when I used to go skiing. And that skiing, it was exhilarating, it was fun, it was fantastic, it was part of the richness of the whole experience. And I realized that that how I was experiencing the same sensation varied depending on the interpretation I had it, the context I put on it, the ideas I had about it. And after that, biking didn't become so difficult anymore. I realized that I was adding something to the experience of cold. I was adding self-pity, and this is going to be tough and hard, and I don't know what I was adding exactly. And then it became just more matter of fact and simple to have the cold. It was still cold and a little bit painful, but I didn't complicate it so much with all the ideas that were kind of subconscious almost. I didn't really realize how much I was doing. I thought it was just the cold. The cold, was painful, was bad. But we contribute to the experience. We have interpretations, meaning-making, predictions of what it means. We have self-referential feelings about it. This means that I maybe have self-pity about things that are difficult, or self-congratulations for things that are good. And these inner movements of the mind may be very subtle, we don't necessarily see them, but they are kind of helping to shape our experience and to give kind of the totality, the gestalt of it. As we practice mindfulness, we can start teasing apart the different component elements that are all glommed together. We can see that self-pity is self-pity. It's different than the cold. We can see that the way that we're worried about the future that pulls into my experience of cold, for example, is just my thoughts about the future. And we begin kind of teasing apart all this, the component elements. And as we do that, we begin actually freeing the mind. We begin, rather than glomming on or focusing on it, then we begin to free it, because not only is our experience, like for example of me of the cold, partly shaped by my relationship to it, but it's also shaping how I might experience the mind. The mind gets contracted, it gets tight, it gets small. The mind gets hot, agitated. And the inner mood, the state of mind that we have, shifts and changes also, depending on what we're focusing on and how we're focusing on it in relationship to things. So we're also, in a sense, shaping how we experience the mind, or how the mind can be felt. Whether that's the mind itself, who knows what the mind is, but how we experience the mind is what we're really working with in this practice here. And so the mind is also being shaped. And the language of the early tradition is that the concepts we are focusing on, fixating on, creates limits, creates a boundary to the mind, an edge to the mind. But as we stop focusing so much on the things and our preoccupations and all these activities of the mind, the activities of the mind get quieter and quieter, the way in which we kind of shape the feeling of the mind, the sense of the mind, begins to lose its edges, its coagulation, its contraction, its gathering together, and it becomes more open, more spacious, and after a while you can almost feel like there's no boundaries to the mind, or no boundaries to awareness, or no boundaries to the state that we're in. And to use a little bit dangerous word from what I said earlier, no boundaries to consciousness. And it isn't so much, again, important what all these words point to. the wonderful thing is the experience of no more edges, no more boundaries. And the mind starts feeling large, great, expansive, wide. And this is one of the things that can be experienced as we deepen this meditation practice, is the mind becomes expansive, becomes wide. In Zen they called it a big mind, and as opposed to the small mind. And the expansive mind rather than the contracted mind. The more expansive it gets, the calmer it becomes, the less agitated it is. In the similar that space, empty space, kind of has no agitation. And they say that it's, that the mind becomes similar to space. So less and less agitation and calm. It also helps make the mind more malleable and shapeable, because when we're really fixated on something, the mind becomes hard, maybe even brittle, and kind of fixated also. And if you do the same habit of mind over and over and over again for decades, the mind gets kind of locked into being a particular way. It's hard to soften it. But with meditation, enough time, it begins to soften and relax, and it becomes malleable and shapeable. And one of the ways the mind can be then more, what happens when the mind becomes more shapeable or malleable or soft, and is it's easier and easier to train the mind. It's easier and easier to get the mind focused and centered, settled. And that allows for some of the more beautiful qualities of the mind to shine. The mind that's fixated and bounded and limited by its agitation and preoccupation doesn't really allow for the luminosity of the mind to show itself. The clarity of the mind, the mind that feels clean, the mind that feels bright. So this gestalt, this wide sense of the attitude of mind, the state of mind, the mood of mind, the quality of awareness, that is so wide that it includes all things. And it includes our suffering. Not to deny it, but to give it a very different context than if our relationship is like locked on to our suffering. And it's possible to suffer of different kinds and not lock on, and to feel the suffering being held or existing in this much wider, broader context has a certain kind of ease or calm that also allows to have compassion for suffering. There's space for friendliness and care for it, that's maybe more difficult when we're locked into it. So there's a lot of benefits to discovering this mindfulness of the mind. And for an anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing practice, we train ourselves to breathe with the mind. Breathing in when experiences the mind. Breathing out when experiences the mind. And as always with this anapanasati, this rhythm of breathing in and breathing out is meant to keep us from getting fixated on anything, including fixated on the mind. So they just stay fluid and relaxed kind of with the breathing. Breathing in with the mind, breathing out with the mind. So how about taking care of one's body by getting mittens or wool socks over hands? These days I bike down with mittens on my hands, with gloves. I just was not smart enough when I was a college student for that even to occur to me. I didn't have gloves and never passed my mind. So some of us, it takes a while to become wise about how to take care of ourselves. But in the meantime, I got a very good lesson from my story with the my cold hands. So thank you very much.